Welcome to another Kairntech use case video, this time about building a contract analysis pipeline. We're going to combine different approaches to document analysis like document categorization, entity extraction, so finding out which entities are mentioned in the text, and then our notion of building a pipeline that allows to combine these. And that's what it takes in order to build our use case. So we're going to build a pipeline that first categorizes documents and then, if the category is right, extracts the respective entities. So let's proceed and build a project. We give the project a name. We will analyze different types of contracts first. It will be a document categorization project. And in the next steps, we need to import a number of miscellaneous contracts from which to extract our desired type of contract. So the system proceeds and imports our documents, and in a couple of moments we have our project filled with the various types of contracts. And now we have our documents inside the project. We can see that some of them are about leasing office space, some of them are about different types of contracts, about credit agreements, and that will be our task. So we will try to identify first all the contracts that are about lease. So we define the respective categories. We define a category for the lease contracts and for the non-lease contracts. And then go manually through the documents and decide which is which. So we take the first one. That doesn't seem to be a lease contract, so we give it the respective category and proceed to the next one. That in fact is a lease contract. It clearly says it's a lease, so we give it the respective category, and we proceed doing so for a handful of documents. We proceed quickly through our corpus, assigning more and more examples to the respective categories. And while we were doing that, the system observed what we were doing in the background. And now this blue icon here shows us the system is now starting to make us suggestions. I think I've understood this is a lease contract. This is a lease contract. No, this is not a lease contract. So we correct it, and we quickly proceed by going through the suggestions of the system, either accepting or correcting what the system suggest us. So this is further speeding up the process with a process called active learning, and we quickly further enrich our training corpus with new documents about lease contracts and non-lease contracts. And once we are done, we are heading over to the experiment section, and we are creating a new experiment that is supposed to train a model in order to distinguish between the lease and the non-lease contracts. We select our Keras classifier here and quickly start it by pressing a button. It proceeds quickly. And let's check what we have got. Okay, so it gives us 100%. So it with 100% accuracy, it distinguishes between the documents that we have classified to lease and to non-lease. That is not always the case, but that's a happy outcome. So let's now annotate all the remaining documents with the newly created lease, no lease classifier. Let's apply that to all our documents, so even the ones that we have not manually assigned are now receiving their category from our newly trained model. Once this is finished, we see that some documents have received two categories, one manually, one from the model. And by taking the ones that are lease contracts by virtue of the model, we now have a corpus of 80 documents that are just lease contracts, and we export them to a specific file. So now using that file, we can create a new project saying from these we want to extract certain specific information from these contracts. So let's make it an entity extraction project and import our newly created corpus. Here it is. And we import that in a couple of moments. So now we have imported our documents and we want to identify some key information from the contracts, like the contract parties, the object that is about to be leased, and when the contract was signed. And again, we mark that up with the mouse. So here in blue we have the contract parties, here we have the address, in yellow the date, and as before in the categorization project, we proceed manually assigning some examples with the mouse in these contracts. And one more, and one more. So here are the contract parties, and the date, and the address that is about to be leased. And you know the game by now. We have to do that for a number of documents and quickly proceed through our corpus. After a while, again, we can go over to our suggestions as we did before. And now we get a number of segments in which some hypotheses are already marked up. So here, for instance, blue, again, a contract party. That is correct, so I accept that. And the address that is about to be leased, again, in green, I accept. I accept the whole segment, and it proceeds to the next one. The two guys in blue here are, again, the contract parties. Accept, accept, accept the whole thing. The date and another contract party, we accept that and proceed to the next one. You see that we can quickly go through our corpus, enriching more and more examples into our data set, like the date here. So after having spent some time with these suggestions, we can head over and see what we've got. And we've got a little bit more than 5,000 of the various documents, of the various categories. That's not a lot, but it might be enough in order to start training a model. I've done that already for you. I've created an experiment that applied a FLAIR entity extraction algorithms with embeddings, and it leaves us at something a little bit below 65%. So that's not bad, and now it's time to put all that together. We do that by creating a pipeline project that I have done for you here. So let's take a look at what is inside. There's one pipeline that in a sequence first applies the categorization model. Is it a lease contract or not? And if it is a lease contract, it applies the FLAIR model that we have created, that we have trained in the second step. So it's a conditional workflow, and I've already created the entity types that we need in order to perform our task here. Let's take a look at one document. That is not a lease contract. I send it to the test view, to the test window, where I can apply my pipeline, and it quickly comes back. There's nothing to extract because it is not even a lease contract. So there's no lease object. So let's go to the second one. The second one seems to be a lease contract. Let's verify with our pipeline. That takes a second now. And then it is coming back and says, yes, with 100% accuracy, it is a lease contract. And these are the entities that we have trained, which are found inside that document. Okay, so much for today. That is what I wanted to show you. Obviously, there's much more to see and to learn about how to use Kairntech. So don't hesitate to check out our documentation at kairntech.com/doc with many details about how to use the software on this and that specific use case. If you're interested in trying this out for yourself in a free trial with no commitment and no obligation, or if you have more specific questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with us at info@kairntech.com. Thanks for your attention and stay tuned for more.